We feel we've gained a couple of key insights through the work. The first is that green and affordable are not just intertwined, but that they are, in fact, inextricably linked agendas, insofar as low-income people and communities suffer disproportionately from housing challenges, energy costs, and effects of climate change. The good news is that we can now demonstrate very conclusively that those agendas to create and build green and meet affordable housing demand can be one and the same. We can show that the costs are only about 2 to 4% higher, and that this premium tends to come down for developers as they gain experience. We can show that most of the marginally higher costs attributable to these measures generate financial savings for low-income families, to whom those savings definitely matter the most. And in other words, those techniques do pay for themselves in an affordable context, and usually very quickly. We can show that greening affordable development at scale does result in measurable improvements in health and reduced healthcare costs, especially asthma. That greening affordable housing at scale reduces carbon emission very measurably. And the evidence to back these assertions is included also in the written statement that we've given you. The other key insight that we've derived pursuing these goals is that federal leadership is essential, and that a national commitment to this agenda in affordable housing is sorely lacking. We need national bipartisan commitment to this effort. Our 10-point plan lays out key elements of what we think that commitment should entail, and it's included in our statement. But in the broad strokes, a federal commitment of $5 billion a year over 10 years could deliver huge benefits across the board. 25 to 40% energy savings in up to 25 million residential units, up to 50 million tons of carbon dioxide emissions avoided, and hundreds of thousands of green jobs created annually. This federal commitment is relatively modest if one considers that HUD, as Mayor Newsom mentioned, currently spends more than $4 billion annually just to pay utilities in very inefficient government-assisted properties. $5 billion is a very small share of the projected revenues that would be generated under proposals to curb greenhouse gas emissions currently under consideration in Congress and supported by all three major presidential candidates. The solutions are definitely available, but there is no more time, we feel, for small-scale incremental progress. We think that policymakers need to act with urgency and seriousness of purpose. For starters, Congress just simply should not allow taxpayer funds to support building of any kind that does not meet a more demanding minimum standard for energy efficiency and indoor air quality and lower carbon emissions. To wrap it up, I mean, to make it a more personal statement, I'm sure that many of you saw, as I did, the recent paper that was submitted by NASA's chief climatologist, James Hansen. I met him with Congressman Markey the other day. The abstract attached to it argued that, and I'll quote him, "If humanity wishes to preserve a planet similar to that on which civilization developed and on which life on Earth is adapted, paleoclimate evidence and ongoing climate change suggest that CO2 will need to be reduced from its current 385 parts per million to at most 350 parts per million." And that is a tough diagnosis, and it's a monumental challenge. So the significance of these issues that you're debating really can't be overstated. I think we talked about this at the Earth Day rally the other day. I think that every generation is called on in different ways to serve a higher purpose. I think I'm the youngest person at this table, and I wanted to comment that my grandparents' generation rose up, faced the Great War against fascism and totalitarianism. My parents' generation carried the torch of civil rights and social equality. I have very little doubt, personally, I'm 38 years old, I have very little doubt that the legacy of my generation is going to hinge on how we respond to these revelations that we're not living sustainably and that we're altering the environment. And I feel very confident in saying that my generation and even those younger than us have truly embraced this as our cause and that we're ready to rise to this challenge. But bluntly, we are not yet running things. You are. And this is a problem because the scale of this challenge is going to require bold action on a national level. And our generation does not want to be told to go shopping right now. We are ready to sacrifice as our parents and grandparents did. We want to do nation building, but we want to start at home by playing our part in creating the next prosperous American century. But somebody has got to call on us to do this by defining this as a test of our American character, much as Lincoln and Franklin Roosevelt and John F. Kennedy and other great leaders did in their time. And we need it clearly articulated as a national priority, and we need the bar set very high, much higher than it has been, because timidity is going to squander our generation's resolve and resourcefulness. So all of us at Enterprise commend you for convening this hearing, and we're available to answer any questions. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Norton, very much. And in fact, your grandfather, James Rouse, came to Boston in the middle of the 1960s and looked at our oldest buildings, Faneuil Hall, Quincy Market, and said, we can take those old buildings and redesign them for the 20th and the 21st century.
He'd have done them more efficiently if he'd known what we know now.
But even with his vision, though, he did that in Baltimore. He went city after city and took the oldest structures and redesigned them for the new era. And you're here following in his footsteps, asking for us to do it once again for the 21st century. And we thank you for
Thanks for the opportunity.
being here.